I'm Lucy, 32 years old, and I never imagined my father-in-law would fire me in front of the entire executive team. I'd spent 3 years building my career at his company, proving myself through hard work and results, not through family connections. I believed in fairness and merit in doing the right thing. But on that Friday morning in the luxury boardroom on the 45th floor with the Hudson River gleaming behind us, everything I'd built came crashing down. 5 minutes to clear my desk. Public humiliation. Dismissed like I was nothing. But what happened next shocked everyone in that room, including me. Before I tell you what led to that moment, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you've ever been underestimated at work, hit that like button, because this story is for you. And make sure to subscribe because what happened next shocked everyone in that boardroom. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, in a middle-class family that taught me the value of hard work. My father was an engineer, my mother, a teacher. They instilled in me the belief that success comes from effort, not shortcuts. I graduated with an MBA from Columbia University, specializing in operations management and strategy consulting. My dream was simple but ambitious: build a career based on real competence, not connections or politics. 5 years ago, I attended a business conference in Manhattan where I met Marcus. He was 34, working in the tech industry, and unlike anyone I'd ever met. We connected over late-night discussions about business strategy and shared goals. What struck me most was his humility. He never once mentioned that his father was Richard Sterling, CEO of Sterling Global Enterprises, one of the largest corporations in America. I didn't learn about his family's wealth until we'd been dating for 6 months. Marcus and I dated for 2 years before getting married. Throughout that time, he supported my independence completely. Build your own legacy, he'd always tell me. He never suggested I should work for his father's company or use the family name to advance my career. That respect for my autonomy was one of the things I loved most about him. 3 years ago, I made a decision that would change everything. Sterling Global Enterprises posted an opening for an operations manager position. The company was massive, employing 60,000 people globally, with annual revenue exceeding $3 billion. The role was perfect for my skill set. After discussing it with Marcus, we agreed on something crucial: I would apply through the normal channels, and we would keep our marriage private at work. I submitted my application like any other candidate. No special treatment, no family connection mentioned. I went through 5 grueling rounds of interviews. The hiring managers grilled me on supply chain optimization, process improvement methodologies, and crisis management scenarios. Each interview pushed me harder than the last. When I finally received the offer for $120,000 annually, I knew I'd earned it on merit alone. My first day at Sterling Global, I used my maiden name professionally, Lucy Morrison. Only the HR director knew about my relationship with Marcus as required by company policy. Marcus didn't work at Sterling. He had his own career at a tech startup. We kept our worlds separate. I wanted to prove I could succeed without anyone whispering about nepotism or special favors. Richard Sterling, my father-in-law, agreed with our approach. In one of our rare private conversations, he said, "If you want respect in this company, earn it." I appreciated that. At the time, I thought he was a man of principle, someone who valued merit over connections. Looking back now, I realize I should have paid more attention to how quickly he could change his mind about what merit meant. The first 2 years at Sterling Global exceeded every expectation I had. I dove into my work with everything I had. My role focused on streamlining operations across multiple departments, and I discovered inefficiencies that had been costing the company millions annually. Within my first 6 months, I implemented a new inventory management system that reduced warehousing costs by 12%. By the end of year one, I'd restructured the entire operations department. The results spoke for themselves: operating costs down 15%, production efficiency up 20%. My biggest project involved optimizing the supply chain for our Asia-Pacific division. The complexity was immense: coordinating vendors across 7 countries, managing logistics through 3 major ports, and implementing real-time tracking systems. When we finished the project, saved Sterling Global $32 million per year. The recognition came quickly. I received the company's Excellence in Operations Award at the annual leadership conference. Standing on that stage, accepting the crystal trophy, I felt validated. This was what I'd worked for, not because of who I was married to, but because of what I'd accomplished. After 18 months, my supervisor recommended me for promotion to senior operations manager. The promotion came with a salary increase to $160,000 and management of a team of 23 people. My team became my pride. I built a culture of mutual respect, open communication, and shared success. We celebrated wins together and problem-solved collectively when challenges arose. Kevin, my deputy, often said our department felt different from the rest of the company. People actually want to work here, he'd tell me. But 6 months ago, everything started to change. Richard Sterling announced a new hire at the executive level, Nia Hartwell, who would serve as Chief Strategy Officer. The announcement came during a Monday morning all-hands meeting. Richard's enthusiasm was palpable as he introduced her. Nia represents the future of this company, he declared. Her experience at Goldman Sachs and McKinsey makes her uniquely qualified to drive our strategic vision. Nia was 36, impeccably dressed, and radiated the kind of confidence that commands attention. Her resume was undeniably impressive. Harvard Business School, 7 years at Goldman Sachs, 3 years at McKinsey, leading major consulting engagements. On paper, she was exactly the kind of talent any company would want. But from day one, I noticed something off in how she treated me. During her first week, we had a cross-functional meeting to discuss Q3 initiatives. I presented the operations roadmap I'd been developing for 2 months. Halfway through my presentation, Nia interrupted. "That's an interesting point, Lucy, but let me offer a more strategic perspective." She then proceeded to reframe my entire presentation as if she'd thought of it first. This became a pattern. In meetings, Nia would cut me off a redirect credit or subtly undermine my contributions. When I successfully completed a major efficiency project that saved the company $4 million, Nia mentioned in the executive summary that it aligned with the strategic vision I outlined last quarter. Never mind that I'd been working on that project before she even joined the company. The most troubling change was in Richard. Before Nia's arrival, Richard had been supportive and encouraging. He'd publicly praised my work and often asked my opinion on operational challenges. But once Nia joined, his demeanor shifted. He became distant, rarely attending meetings where I presented. When he did show up, he was cold, barely making eye contact. I noticed Richard spent an unusual amount of time with Nia. They had frequent closed-door meetings, lunches that stretched for hours, and hushed conversations that stopped when others approached. Marcus mentioned it to me one evening. "Dad's been acting strange lately. He's never around for family dinners anymore. Always says he's in strategic planning sessions." I tried not to read too much into it. Corporate dynamics shift when new executives join. I focused on my work, trusting that results would speak louder than politics. But a small voice in the back of my mind kept whispering that something wasn't right. 3 months after Nia's arrival, the subtle undermining became overt obstruction. It started with small things that seemed almost innocent at first. Nia began positioning herself as the reviewer of all operational projects. "Just for quality control," she explained during a leadership meeting. "We need to ensure alignment across departments." What that meant in practice was that every report I submitted, every proposal I drafted, went through Nia before reaching Richard or the executive committee. I started noticing changes in my documents. Numbers I'd carefully calculated were adjusted slightly downward. Challenges I'd noted as minor were reframed as major concerns. My achievements were described in passive language that diminished their impact. Kevin noticed it too. "Lucy, your quarterly report came back from Nia's office," he said one afternoon, sliding a document across my desk. "Look at what she changed." I scanned through the tracked edits. Where I'd written, "exceeded efficiency targets by 18%, Nia had changed it to "met basic efficiency expectations, with some areas of improvement needed." The data was identical. Only the narrative had changed. The most blatant incident happened during a leadership presentation. 3 months earlier, I'd proposed a radical restructuring of our vendor management system. The idea was innovative. Instead of managing hundreds of small vendors, we'd consolidate to strategic partnerships with a dozen key suppliers. I'd spent weeks building the business case, running financial models, and consulting with procurement experts. At the May executive meeting, Nia presented my idea as her own. She stood at the front of the boardroom with my slides, my data, my recommendations. The only difference was her name on the title page. When she finished, Richard nodded approvingly. Excellent strategic thinking, Nia. This is exactly the kind of innovation we need. I sat in stunned silence. Finally, I raised my hand. I actually proposed this initiative back in February. The financial models and vendor analysis were completed by my team. Nia smiled sweetly. Great minds think alike, Lucy. It's wonderful when multiple people see the same opportunities. She turned back to Richard. What Lucy's referring to was a preliminary idea. I've developed it into a comprehensive strategic framework. Richard didn't acknowledge my contribution. He simply said, "Let's move forward with Nia's plan." Not our plan, not the plan, Nia's plan. After the meeting, my team was livid. Sarah, one of the directors who worked closely with me, pulled me aside. "That was your project, Lucy. Everyone knows it. Why didn't Richard say anything?" I didn't have an answer, but the incident marked a turning point. Suddenly, other departments started treating me differently. People who used to seek my input began going to Nia instead. Project invitations dwindled. My voice in strategic discussions carried less weight. Then the whispers started. I first heard about them from Amanda, a marketing manager I'd mentored. She approached me hesitantly in the cafeteria. "Lucy, I need to tell you something. Nia's been talking to department heads. She's saying your team has been missing deadlines and that she's concerned about operational quality." My stomach dropped. "That's not true. We've met every deadline." Amanda nodded. "I know, that's why I'm telling you. But she's creating a narrative. People are starting to question whether you're struggling." I pulled our team's performance data. The numbers were clear: 97% on time delivery quality scores, above target customer satisfaction ratings at all-time highs. But numbers didn't matter if the wrong story was being told. The situation escalated when I received a meeting invitation from HR. Jessica Chen, the HR director, asked me to come to her office. When I arrived, her expression was serious. "Lucy, we've received a complaint about you. It's been filed anonymously, so I can't tell you who submitted it." "A complaint about what?" Jessica pulled up a document on her screen. "The allegation is that you're leveraging your relationship with the CEO's family for preferential treatment, that you've been given advantages other employees don't receive." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. For 3 years, I'd worked tirelessly to avoid even the appearance of nepotism. I'd used my maiden name. I'd never once asked Richard for anything. Every promotion I'd received came with documented justification from my direct supervisors. "This is absurd," I said. "Who filed this? I can't disclose that, but we're required to investigate. I'll need to audit your employment history, every promotion decision, every budget approval you've received." Walking back to my office, I knew exactly who had filed that complaint. Nia was systematically destroying my reputation, and she was doing it in ways that were just ambiguous enough to seem legitimate. That evening, I told Marcus everything. His face grew darker with each detail. "This is ridiculous. You've earned everything you have at that company. I'm calling Dad." "Marcus, no. That'll just make it look like I'm running to family for help." But Marcus was already dialing. I listened to his side of the conversation, hearing his frustration build. When he hung up, he looked shaken. "Dad said to stay out of company business. He told me I don't work there, so I don't understand the complexities. He actually said that maybe people do think you get special treatment, and that's something that needs to be addressed." I stared at my husband. "He believes her. Your father actually believes Nia over you. Over me." Marcus pulled me close. "I don't know what she's done, but somehow she's gotten completely into his head." The isolation intensified over the following weeks. Nia's campaign against me became more brazen, and Richard's enabling of it became more obvious. The next blow came through my calendar. I received a meeting cancellation for the monthly strategy session, a meeting I'd attended regularly for 2 years as senior operations manager. When I asked Richard's executive assistant about it, she seemed uncomfortable. "The meeting structure has been revised. Not everyone is included anymore." I checked the attendee list through a colleague. Every C-suite executive was there, every senior director, and Nia. Just not me. Kevin wasn't invited either. In fact, several people from my team found themselves suddenly excluded from meetings they'd always attended. Meanwhile, Nia brought in her own people consultants and analysts she'd worked with at her previous companies. They began appearing in strategy sessions, weighing in on operational matters they knew nothing about. I tried to address it directly with Richard. I sent him a carefully worded email. I've noticed some changes in meeting structures and decision-making processes. I'd appreciate the opportunity to discuss my role and how I can continue contributing to the company's strategic direction. I believe there may be some misunderstandings about my work and my team's contributions. His response came 3 hours later, just 2 sentences. We'll discuss this soon. Focus on your current responsibilities for now. But soon never came. Days turned into weeks. My access to high-level information dried up. Strategic initiatives moved forward without operational input. I heard about major decisions through the rumor mill rather than official channels. The psychological impact was devastating. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, mind racing through everything I might have done wrong. Had I been too confident, too ambitious? Had I inadvertently made Richard feel I was trading on the family connection? Marcus kept reassuring me, but even he seemed bewildered by his father's behavior. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was reviewing quarterly budgets when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ms. Morrison, this is Daniel Park from Hartwell and Associates. The name meant nothing to me. I'm calling regarding a consultation request about estate planning that was scheduled on behalf of Dorothy Sterling. My blood ran cold. Dorothy Sterling was Richard's mother, Marcus's grandmother who had passed away 5 years ago. I think there's been a mistake. Dorothy Sterling is deceased. There was a pause. That's concerning. The appointment was made by Travis Sterling 3 days ago. He indicated she needed to update her will and establish a trust. Travis Sterling didn't exist. But Nia's middle name was Travis. I'd seen it on her employment paperwork when HR accidentally CC'd me on a benefits email. Can you send me the documentation for that appointment request? I asked, keeping my voice steady. I'm not sure I should. I'm family, and I think someone may be attempting fraud. He agreed to send the emails. What arrived in my inbox an hour later was chilling. Nia had used a fake name to set up appointments with estate attorneys, presumably to learn how to challenge family inheritance structures. She'd made inquiries about protecting assets from family members who might have undue influence. I forwarded everything to Marcus. His response was immediate. She's planning something big. We need to figure out what. The answer came 2 days later on a Friday morning that started like any other. I arrived at my desk at 7:30 as usual. Made coffee, reviewed my schedule, prepared for meetings. At 9:45, a calendar invitation appeared. Mandatory leadership meeting, 10 a.m., executive boardroom. No agenda, no context, just mandatory attendance for all senior managers and C-suite executives. I grabbed my laptop and headed to the 45th floor. The executive boardroom was Sterling Global's crown jewel. A massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River. A marble conference table stretching 20 feet chairs upholstered in Italian leather. The room was designed to intimidate, to remind everyone who entered that they were in the presence of serious power and serious money. When I walked in, the atmosphere was strange. 30 people were already seated, but the usual pre-meeting chatter was absent. People sat in uncomfortable silence, avoiding eye contact. Richard was at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. To his right sat Nia, and I swear I saw a small smile play at her lips when I entered. I took a seat near the middle of the table. Kevin sat beside me and leaned over to whisper, "Do you know what this is about?" I shook my head, but my heart was pounding. Something was very wrong. At exactly 10 o'clock, Richard stood. "Thank you all for being here on short notice. We need to address some serious concerns about leadership and accountability." His voice was formal, distant. This wasn't the man who'd welcomed me to the company 3 years ago. This was a CEO about to make an example of someone. "This company was built on integrity, merit, and transparency," Richard continued. "When those values are compromised, we must act decisively, regardless of personal relationships or past performance." The room grew even quieter. I could hear my own heartbeat. Richard's eyes locked onto mine. "Lucy, please stand up." The words hit me like a physical blow. Around the table, people shifted uncomfortably. I stood slowly, legs trembling, hands gripping the edge of the table for support. Over the past months, we've conducted a thorough review of your performance and conduct, Richard said, his voice echoing in the silent room. Multiple concerns have been raised about conflicts of interest, underperformance, and questionable decision-making. Nia stood and moved to the presentation screen. Let me outline the issues we've identified. Her voice was professional, almost kind, which somehow made it worse. She clicked her remote, and the first slide appeared. Performance decline, the header read. Below it, Operations Department efficiency down 8% in Q3. I found my voice. That's because the budget was cut by 15% without consultation. My team adapted remarkably well given the constraints. Please don't interrupt, Richard said sharply. Nia advanced to the next slide. Missed deadline 7 key deliverables late in the past quarter. Those deadlines were added retroactively, I protested. We completed every original milestone. Nia gave me a pitying look. That's your interpretation, Lucy. The leadership team sees a pattern of excuses rather than accountability. The third slide made my vision blur. Conflict of interest, alleged use of family connections for personal advancement. That's absolutely false, I said, my voice rising. I've never once asked for special treatment. Richard cut me off. The investigation shows a pattern of decisions that could be perceived as nepotism. Rapid promotions, access to confidential information, preferential budget allocations. Perceived by who? I demanded. Every promotion I received was recommended by my direct supervisor with full documentation. My budget was standard for my department size, and I've had less access to confidential information than any other senior manager at my level. Nia shook her head sadly. Perception matters in leadership, Lucy, and the perception is that you've been given advantages others haven't. Richard picked up a manila envelope from the table. Effective immediately. Your employment at Sterling Global Enterprises is terminated. You have 5 minutes to collect personal items from your desk. Security will escort you from the building. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. I stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. This couldn't be real. 3 years of excellent work ended in 5 minutes of humiliation. Kevin jumped to his feet. Richard, this is wrong. You know this is wrong. Sit down, Kevin, or you'll be joining her. Sarah, the director of product development, raised her voice. We should at least hear Lucy's side of this. She deserves due process. Nia's voice cut through. All evidence has been reviewed by leadership. The decision is final. I looked around the room, seeing a mixture of shocked sympathy and careful neutrality on people's faces. Some couldn't meet my eyes. Others looked like they wanted to speak but didn't dare. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The shock gave way to clarity. These people, Richard and Nia, they wanted me to break. They wanted tears, please, maybe even anger they could use against me later. They wanted to paint me as unstable, emotional, unable to handle professional criticism. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. I took a slow, deep breath, straightened my spine, looked directly at Richard, then at Nia, and I smiled. Not a big smile, just a small, knowing curve of my lips. Thank you, I said clearly. The room went silent again, but this time with confusion instead of tension. Nia's brow furrowed. Excuse me. Thank you. I repeated, my voice steady and calm. Thank you for showing me exactly who values loyalty, integrity, and truth, and who doesn't. Richard's face hardened. Lucy, you need to leave now. I nodded. I will. I turned to face my team, the people I'd worked alongside for 3 years. It's been an honor working with people who actually care about doing the right thing. I picked up my laptop and walked toward the door. Every step felt surreal, like I was moving through water. The 20 feet to the exit stretched endlessly. My hand touched the door handle, and then I heard a chair scrape against the floor. Kevin's voice rang out. I'm going with you. I turned. Kevin was standing, laptop in hand, his face set with determination. Richard's voice was sharp. Kevin, sit down or you're fired too. Kevin looked at Richard steadily. Then I quit. I won't work for a company that treats people like this. Nia stepped forward. You're making a huge mistake. Think about your career. Kevin shook his head. The mistake was made when you started this witch hunt. He walked over to stand beside me. Then Sarah stood up. I'm out too. Richard's face flushed red. Sarah, think about what you're doing. I am thinking about it, Sarah said calmly. I can't work for a company that fires its best people based on lies. James, a senior data analyst from my team, stood next. I'm leaving. Then Amanda from marketing. Me too. David, the software engineering lead. Count me in. It started slowly, then accelerated. One person standing, then two, then five. Each one picked up their laptop or phone. Each one walked toward where Kevin and I stood by the door. The movement spread like ripples across water. Grace, our HR business partner, stood with tears in her eyes. I saw what they did to you, Lucy. I saw the complaint that was filed. It was all lies. I can't be part of this anymore. Thomas from finance. I'd rather work with you than for them. Richard stood, his voice booming. Anyone who walks out that door is terminated immediately. You're throwing away your careers. Marcus, who wasn't even supposed to be in this meeting, appeared in the doorway. He must have heard what was happening. He looked at his father with disappointment I'd never seen before. No, Dad. They're following someone worth following. One by one, people filed past. Some squeezed my shoulder. Others whispered words of support. You taught me what real leadership looks like. This is not right. We've got your back. I counted silently. All 23 people from my direct team, then Sarah's team, people from finance, from marketing, from IT, people I'd helped on projects, mentored through challenges, collaborated with on initiatives. 22 people total. 22 senior employees walking out of a mandatory leadership meeting, throwing away stable jobs and good salaries because they refused to be part of an injustice. Richard and Nia stood at the front of the room watching their carefully constructed public execution turn into a mass exodus. The boardroom that should have been full had emptied by half. Gregory Mills, the legal director, hadn't moved from his seat, but his face had gone pale. I saw him frantically typing on his laptop, opening documents, his expression growing more horrified with each passing second. He looked up at Richard. Richard, he said urgently, we need to stop this immediately. Richard was still staring at the empty chairs. What? Gregory's voice dropped to a whisper, but in the quiet room several people heard. Get the lawyer now, Nia frowned. What are you talking about? Gregory turned his laptop screen toward Richard. Lucy's employment contract. I just pulled it up. She has a performance protection clause that requires documented underperformance over 6 months with formal written warnings before termination. Richard went very still. But the investigation? An anonymous complaint isn't grounds for immediate termination under her contract terms, Gregory said, his voice rising slightly. And she received 0 formal warnings. This termination violates her contract. Nia's confidence faltered. The HR review showed... What HR review? Gregory gestured at the door where Grace, the HR business partner, had just exited. She's the person who would have conducted any formal review, and she just walked out with Lucy. Richard sank into his chair. How bad is this? Gregory's expression was grim. If Lucy sues for wrongful termination, very bad. If those 22 employees corroborate a hostile work environment created to force her out, catastrophic. And if the board finds out we just lost nearly 1/3 of our senior leadership in one day, due to what appears to be an illegal termination. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I didn't hear the rest of their conversation. The 22 of us were already in the elevator descending from the 45th floor. The elevator was packed silent, except for the mechanical hum of descent. When the doors opened to the lobby, we walked out together into the bright morning sunlight. On the sidewalk outside Sterling Global Enterprises, we stood in a cluster looking at each other, the reality of what we'd just done beginning to sink in. Kevin laughed first, a slightly hysterical sound. Did we really just do that? Sarah grinned. We absolutely did. Someone's phone buzzed, then another. Within minutes, everyone's phones were lighting up with messages. News traveled fast in corporate buildings. People were asking what happened, expressing shock, offering support. My phone rang. Marcus. Are you okay? I think so, I said. I can't quite believe what just happened. I can, Marcus said. You inspired them, Lucy. They followed you because they believe in you. That's real leadership. Standing there on the street with 22 people who just sacrificed their careers for principle, I felt something unexpected. Not despair, not fear, but a strange sense of liberation. For 3 years, I'd been trying to prove myself in a system that was never going to be fair. Now that system had shown its true nature, and I was free of it. Kevin looked around at our group. So what now? I didn't have an answer yet. But looking at the faces around me, people I trusted and respected, I knew we'd figure it out together. The rest of that Friday passed in a blur. We moved our impromptu gathering from the sidewalk to a coffee shop 2 blocks away. 22 of us crammed into a space meant for maybe 15 laptops, open phones buzzing constantly, trying to process what had just happened. The messages kept coming. People still inside Sterling Global were reaching out, sharing information. Apparently, the boardroom had emptied within minutes of our departure. Richard canceled all remaining meetings for the day. Nia had locked herself in her office. The HR department was in crisis mode. But the most interesting information came from an unexpected source. Around 3 in the afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Lucy Morrison. An older woman's voice, strong and commanding. Yes, this is Ellen Rothschild. I'm the chairwoman of Sterling Global's board of directors. I nearly dropped my phone. Ellen Rothschild was a legend in business circles. 70 years old, she'd built and sold 2 companies before joining Sterling's board a decade ago. She didn't make social calls. Ms. Rothschild, I'm surprised to hear from you. I imagine you are. I'm calling because I just learned what happened in that boardroom this morning. Richard informed the board an hour ago that we lost 22 senior employees today. He framed it as a coordinated walkout by disgruntled staff. But I've been making calls, and I'm hearing a very different story. I chose my words carefully. I was terminated this morning. Others chose to leave in response to how that termination was conducted. I'm hearing it was a public humiliation, that you were given 5 minutes to clear your desk in front of 30 people with no prior warning or due process. That's accurate, Ellen's voice hardened. I'm also hearing that you're Richard's daughter-in-law, that you've been employed there for 3 years with excellent performance reviews, and that a new executive has been systematically undermining you for months. Where did you hear all that? I have my sources, including your husband who called me an hour ago. Marcus and I have known each other since he was a child. When he told me what happened, I pulled your file. Your performance reviews are outstanding. Every promotion you received was documented and justified. You saved this company over $30 million with your Asia-Pacific supply chain project alone. I felt tears threatening for the first time that day. Then why did Richard fire me? That's what I intend to find out. I've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Richard is going to have to explain how he conducted a termination that violated company policy, destroyed employee morale, and potentially exposes us to massive legal liability. After Ellen hung up, I shared the conversation with the group. The mood shifted from shell-shocked to cautiously hopeful. Maybe this wasn't over. Maybe there would be accountability. That evening, Marcus and I sat on our apartment balcony watching the sunset over the city. He'd been quiet since coming home processing his father's betrayal. I don't understand him, Marcus finally said. I've never seen Dad like this. It's like Nia has some kind of hold over him. People are complicated, I said. Maybe he saw something in her that reminded him of himself when he was building the company. Maybe he felt threatened by me because of our relationship. Maybe he just made a really bad judgment call. Marcus shook his head. It's more than that. I've been thinking about it all day. 6 months ago, right before Nia was hired, Dad was talking about succession planning. He was thinking about retiring in a few years. And you were doing incredibly well. What if he saw you as a potential threat to whatever plans he had? That doesn't make sense. I never wanted his job. You didn't have to want it. Your competence was the threat. If you kept succeeding, if you kept building loyalty with the team, you'd have been a natural candidate for VP or even C-suite positions. And you're married to his son. That creates a family dynamic he couldn't control. I thought about it. Marcus might be right. Sometimes the people we threaten most are the ones who should be our biggest supporters. The next morning, Saturday, Marcus got a call from his father. The conversation was brief and tense. When he hung up, his face was grim. The board meeting happened. Ellen brought in the company's employment attorney. They reviewed your contract, examined the termination process, and interviewed several people who witnessed what happened. And Dad's being forced to step down as CEO effective immediately. The board is appointing an interim CEO while they search for permanent replacement. And they want to offer you a settlement. I raised my eyebrows. What kind of settlement? Full back pay, restoration of benefits, and compensation for wrongful termination. They're also willing to reinstate you with a promotion to VP of Operations, with a 50% salary increase. What about Nia? I asked. Marcus's expression turned cold. She was terminated this morning. Ellen apparently did some digging into her background. Turns out this isn't the first time Nia's targeted successful women in her workplace. At Goldman Sachs, a senior analyst resigned suddenly after Nia joined, citing a hostile work environment. At McKinsey, there was a similar situation that was quietly settled. Nia's brilliant at making herself look good, while destroying anyone she perceives as competition. And your father fell for it completely. He did more than fall for it. He enabled it. He chose to believe her narrative over everything he knew about you, over 3 years of proven results, over his own son's word. The board is furious. That afternoon, my phone rang again. Richard this time. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. Lucy. His voice sounded exhausted. I owe you an apology. A massive one. I stayed silent, letting him continue. I was wrong. Completely wrong. I let someone manipulate me into seeing threats where there weren't any. You never did anything but excel at your job, and I destroyed that because I was too proud to see what was happening. Why are you calling me? I asked quietly. The board wants to offer you your position back. VP of Operations, 50% salary increase, full benefits restoration, and a formal public apology from me and the company. I laughed softly. It wasn't a happy sound. You think a promotion fixes this? Lucy, please. You humiliated me in front of 30 people, I said, my voice shaking slightly. You believed lies about me without ever asking my side. You chose a stranger over your son's wife, over someone who'd given your company 3 years of dedicated work. And now you want me to come back because it's legally convenient. It's not about legal issues, it's about doing what's right. Doing what's right would have been defending me when Nia started her campaign. Doing what's right would have been trusting the 3 years of excellent work I gave you. This is damage control. There was a long pause. What do you want, Lucy? I took a deep breath. I want you to learn something from this. I want you to remember that loyalty goes both ways. And I want you to know that I don't need your company to prove my worth. I already know what I'm capable of. It's a shame you couldn't see it. I hung up before he could respond. Marcus looked at me with pride and concern. You're turning down the offer. I am. Because going back would mean accepting that what they did was somehow fixable with money and a better title. It's not. They showed me who they really are. I believe them. Over the next week, I met regularly with the 22 people who'd walked out with me. We gathered at a co-working space in Brooklyn, splitting the cost between us, trying to figure out our next steps. The mood was surprisingly energetic. Yes, we'd all lost our jobs. Yes, we had bills to pay and families to support. But there was also a sense of possibility of freedom from a toxic environment. On Thursday evening, I called everyone together. I've been thinking about this all week. We have combined experience of over 300 years in operations, finance, marketing, IT, product development, and strategy. We know every major player in our industry. We have proven track records of success. And most importantly, we actually respect and trust each other. Kevin leaned forward. What are you proposing? What if we started our own consulting firm, operations consulting specifically? Companies are always looking for expertise in efficiency, supply chain optimization, process improvement. We could offer all of that, and we'd do it with integrity. Sarah's eyes lit up. I love this. We could be selective about our clients, work with companies that actually value ethics. James nodded. The market for operations consulting is huge, and we've got credibility. Our collective resume is impressive. One by one, people voiced their support. We spent the next 3 hours brainstorming. By the end of the night, we had a name: Integrity Operations Group. Our mission statement: excellence built on trust, not politics. We divided responsibilities. I would serve as CEO, Kevin as Chief Operations Officer, Sarah would head business development, Thomas from finance would be our CFO. We'd operate as a partnership with everyone holding equity stakes. The first month was chaos. We filed incorporation papers, opened business accounts, built a website, developed service offerings. We reached out to our networks, letting people know we were open for business. The response was overwhelming. Apparently, news of what happened at Sterling Global had spread through industry circles. Several companies reached out specifically because they'd heard about 22 people walking out on principle. Our first client was a manufacturing company in New Jersey struggling with supply chain issues. They'd heard about the Asia Pacific project I'd led at Sterling. The contract was worth $200,000 for a 3-month engagement. We assembled a team of 5 people from our group and dove in. The project was a success. We identified inefficiencies, saving them 15% on logistics costs, and implemented a new vendor management system. The client was thrilled. They referred us to 2 other companies in their network. By month 3, we had contracts worth over $1 million. By month 6, we'd hired additional staff and opened a proper office space. Our year 1 revenue projection hit $8 million. Sterling Global, meanwhile, was struggling. The loss of 22 senior employees created massive operational disruptions. Projects stalled, key client relationships deteriorated. Their stock price dropped 12% in 2 quarters. Richard eventually resigned from the board entirely, citing health reasons. Marcus told me his father had aged noticeably, the stress of everything taking a visible toll. I felt no satisfaction in Sterling's struggles, just a quiet recognition that actions have consequences. They'd chosen politics over people, and they were paying the price. Marcus and I grew closer through everything. He'd seen me at my lowest point and stood by me completely. He'd been willing to challenge his own father for what was right. That kind of loyalty meant everything. One evening, about 8 months after that day in the boardroom, Marcus and I were having dinner when my phone rang. Ellen Rothschild again. "Lucy, I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all. What can I do for you?" "I wanted you to know that Sterling Global has completed its leadership transition. We have a new CEO, and we've implemented new policies around workplace conduct and termination procedures. Your case was a wake-up call for us." "I'm glad some good came from it." Ellen hesitated. "I also wanted to say I'm impressed with what you've built. Integrity Operations Group has quite a reputation already. Several board members have mentioned your company as one to watch." "Thank you. We're proud of what we're building." "The offer still stands, you know. If you ever wanted to return to Sterling Global, we'd welcome you back in a leadership role." I smiled. "I appreciate that, Ellen. But I'm exactly where I need to be. I've learned that sometimes the best thing that can happen is being forced to bet on yourself." After we hung up, Marcus raised his glass. "To betting on yourself." I clinked my glass against his. "To betting on yourself." Sitting here now 2 years after that morning in the boardroom, I can finally see the full picture clearly. What felt like the worst day of my life turned out to be the catalyst for the best decision I ever made. Integrity Operations Group is thriving. We've grown to 45 employees with offices in 3 cities. Our revenue last year exceeded $20 million. We've worked with some of the biggest names in manufacturing, logistics, and technology. But more than the numbers, I'm proud of the culture we've created. People actually want to work here. There's no politics, no backstabbing, no manipulation. Just talented people doing excellent work and supporting each other. The 22 people who walked out with me that day, they're all still with the company. They're partners, leaders, friends. We built something together that none of us could have built alone. Kevin often jokes that getting fired was the best career move he ever made. My relationship with Richard is complicated. He's reached out several times over the years, always apologetic, always expressing regret. Marcus and I have had dinner with him a few times. The conversations are civil but distant. Some things once broken can't be fully repaired. But I don't carry anger anymore. Anger requires energy I'd rather spend on building something positive. Marcus and I are stronger than ever. He saw me at my lowest and loved me through it. He was willing to stand against his own father for what was right. That's the kind of partnership that matters. We talk sometimes about starting a family, about building a life that's about more than just careers and success, about values and legacy and what we want to pass on. I think about Nia sometimes. I heard she landed at another company, then left under mysterious circumstances a year later. Some people are brilliant, but destructive talented, but toxic. They succeed temporarily, but leave wreckage behind them. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for, though I doubt she ever will. The most unexpected outcome has been the mentorship requests I receive. Young professionals, especially women, reach out asking for advice. They've heard the story and want to know how to navigate difficult workplace situations, how to stand up for themselves, how to build careers with integrity. I try to help where I can. The lessons I learned were expensive, but maybe sharing them can spare others some pain. If there's one thing I want people to take from my story, it's this: your worth isn't determined by people who can't see it. For 3 years, I tried to prove myself to Richard and Sterling Global. I worked harder, achieved more, bent over backwards to demonstrate my value. But none of it mattered because the system was rigged against me from the moment Nia decided I was a threat. The truth is, you can't win in a game with corrupt rules. The only winning move is to stop playing. Walking out of that boardroom was the moment I stopped trying to convince people of my worth and started knowing it for myself. 22 people followed me out that day not because I was perfect or had all the answers. They followed because they recognized authenticity. They saw someone refusing to accept injustice even when it cost everything. That's real leadership. Not titles or corner offices or being named to the C-suite. Leadership is about who you are when the stakes are highest. Would I change anything about that day? Sometimes I think about how different things might have been if I'd handled it differently. If I'd fought harder, argued, more, demanded a formal hearing. But then I remember the feeling of walking out into the sunlight with 22 people at my back. The feeling of starting something new, something built on values that actually mattered. And I know I wouldn't change a thing. The business world is full of people like Richard seduced by charisma and strategic thinking without stopping to verify character. It's full of people like Nia, brilliant and ruthless, willing to destroy others to advance themselves. But it's also full of people like Kevin, Sarah James, Amanda, and the 18 others who chose principle over paychecks. Those are the people worth building something with. Those are the people who restore your faith when the system fails you. Those are the people who remind you that integrity isn't just a word. It's a choice we make every single day. Looking back at that moment when I stood in the boardroom humiliated and dismissed, I wish I could tell my past self something. I wish I could say this isn't the end. This is the beginning. In 5 minutes, you're going to see who really believes in you. And then you're going to build something remarkable with them. The legal settlement from Sterling Global was generous, though no amount of money compensates for public humiliation. I donated a portion to organizations supporting workplace equity and fairness. The rest went into growing Integrity Operations Group, turning pain into purpose, loss into opportunity. Marcus's relationship with his father remains strained. They talk occasionally, mostly about surface-level things. Richard has met our team a few times, seen what we built. I think he understands now what he threw away. But understanding and forgiveness aren't the same thing. Time doesn't heal all wounds. It just teaches you how to carry them. My parents were shocked when I told them the whole story. My father, ever practical, worried about financial stability. My mother worried about the emotional toll. But when they visited our office and met the team, saw the energy and respect and genuine camaraderie, they understood. "You found your people," my mother said. She was right. The story made it into industry publications eventually. Business journals wrote about the mass walkout, analyzing what it meant for corporate culture and leadership accountability. We were offered speaking opportunities at conferences. I accepted a few, always making sure to credit the 22 people who took the leap with me. This was never about one person's triumph. It was about collective courage. Some nights I still dream about that boardroom. In the dreams, I'm standing at the door, and I look back at all those empty chairs. Sometimes in the dream, I'm scared. Sometimes I'm angry. But most often, I'm just sad. Sad for the company that chose politics over people. Sad for Richard, who let his own insecurities destroy something good. Sad for all the talented people who are still trapped in systems that don't value them. But then I wake up in my apartment, Marcus beside me, sunlight streaming through the windows. I check my phone and see messages from my team, plans for the day ahead, new client proposals to review, problems to solve with people I trust. And I remember that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The boardroom was never my destiny. It was just a waypoint, a necessary pain that pushed me towards something better. Sometimes we need to be rejected by the wrong things to find the right ones. Sometimes we need to lose what we thought we wanted to discover what we actually need. To anyone reading this who's facing their own boardroom moment, their own public humiliation, their own moment of being underestimated and dismissed, I want you to know something. You will survive this. More than survive, you will grow from it. The people who stand with you in the hard moments are your real team. The opportunities that align with your values will come, and the strength you find within yourself will be worth more than any title or salary or corner office. Stand up, walk out, build something better. The world needs people who choose integrity over convenience, who value character over politics, who believe that how we treat people matters as much as the results we achieve. That's the legacy I want to leave. Not the revenue numbers or the client list or the awards, but the knowledge that 22 people bet on themselves and each other, and together, we proved that doing the right thing isn't just morally correct, it's also strategically sound. Because here's what Richard and Nia and everyone like them don't understand. Loyalty can't be bought or manipulated. It has to be earned through consistency, through integrity, through showing up when it matters. The people who followed me out that door didn't do it because I was flawless. They did it because they'd seen me show up every day for 3 years, treating people with respect, fighting for what was right, living my values even when it was inconvenient. That's the kind of leadership that lasts. Not the performative kind that looks good in boardrooms, but crumbles under pressure. The authentic kind that builds slowly but stands firm when tested. So thank you, Richard, for firing me. Thank you, Nia, for your betrayal, because you freed me from trying to prove myself in a broken system. You forced me to bet on myself, and that bet paid off in ways I never could have imagined. The best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so remarkable that their rejection becomes irrelevant. It's thriving so completely that their opinion loses all power. It's succeeding so authentically that their manipulation seems pathetic in retrospect. I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. Grateful for the lesson. Grateful for the 22. Grateful for the life and company and community we built from the ashes of that terrible morning. And if I could go back to that moment standing in that boardroom with everyone staring, I'd do exactly what I did. I'd smile. I'd say thank you. I'd walk out with my head high. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to let other people's failures diminish your sense of self-worth. That's my story. That's what I learned. That's what I want to pass on to anyone who needs to hear it. You are worth more than their recognition. You are capable of more than their limited vision can see. And when they show you who they are, believe them, and then build something better without them. I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between staying in a toxic situation or taking a leap into the unknown? Drop a comment below and share your story. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt underestimated or pushed aside, please hit that like button. It helps others who need this message find it. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories about resilience, integrity, and what it really means to lead with values. Real leadership isn't about titles, it's about character. And share this video with someone who needs a reminder that being fired from the wrong place is often the push we need toward the right one. Sometimes rejection is redirection. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I truly believe that the world changes when good people refuse to accept injustice, when talented people bet on themselves, when integrity matters more than convenience. Whatever you're facing today, whatever boardroom moment is testing your resolve, remember this: you're stronger than you think. You're more capable than they see. And the right people will recognize your worth even when the wrong ones can't. Stand up, walk out, build something remarkable. The world is waiting for what only you can create. Take care of yourselves, choose integrity, and never let anyone make you doubt your worth. Until next time.